Hello, my name is Srochi. I'm a member of Assembly's political strategy team, and today I'm going to preview the 2024 Election Outlook Report, which I helped author. We are previewing some of the highest intensity markets and states for the upcoming election cycle today. We're going to just talk a little bit about the factors that go into these races, what makes them so competitive, and why, as a commercial advertiser, this should be of interest to you. A lot of the insights in the report that you'll be reading and a lot of the things I'll be talking about today are informed by Assembly's Market Intensity Index, or otherwise known as AIMI, that assesses the volume of political advertising spending in a given market on a 1 to 10 scale. These scales are derived by several tangible factors in a given DMA, such as the amount of competitive races in the DMA, the level of competitiveness in each race, the expected influx of outside spending from issue groups, and several other factors, some of which is also informed by the expertise of the political strategy team. A lot of our insights are built off of years working within the industry that allows us to provide insights that other agencies won't have access to in how these markets operate and how these races go throughout the duration of an election cycle. This scale assesses the volume by quarter and adds a particular weight to the third and fourth quarters where spending will really reach its apex. We're going to go into the 5 states that we have identified that will be seeing the highest volume of political spend, the markets involved here, the factors in these races that lead to that. And by the end, we're going to talk a little bit about why this should matter to you and your advertisers. First state we're going to highlight is California. Typically not one that would be expected to be of significance during a presidential election year, but California actually will hold a great amount of significance in determining the complexion of the U.S. House of Representatives for the 2025 session. California has 10 competitive House districts that are going to see numerous different levels of political spend, ranging from markets such as Sacramento to San Francisco and Los Angeles. LA in particular is a market that we here at the Assembly political strategy team have identified as a top 5 intensity market for the upcoming cycle. In addition to these competitive House races, the U.S. Senate race will also have a lot of activity in the beginning of the year. Senator Dianne Feinstein is retiring after 30 years serving in the United States Senate, which is creating an opening that rarely comes in California. We've already seen numerous high-profile Democrats enter the race, many of which we are expecting to start spending later in this quarter of 2023, ahead of the March 5th primary in 2024. Spending in this race will also center greatly on Los Angeles, as will some of these competitive House races that we touched on. The market should be flooded very much early on, with maybe a small gap heading into quarter 2. Where things will start to elevate again is when we get to that third and fourth quarter of the year, where those Senate candidates, whoever wins the primary, will once again return to the airwaves. California, unlike many other states, has an open primary system, so they could have 2 members of the same party competing with one another in the general election ahead of November. Beyond these candidates in the Senate and the House, it's also worth noting that California has seen an incredible amount of spending regarding ballot initiatives. We don't know exactly what will be on the ballot come November of 2024, but California has shown itself to be a proving ground for a lot of spend in this sector as well. Next up, we have a state that you may be more familiar with as being a pretty active one in these big presidential election years, North Carolina. Now, while it isn't the swing state that it may have used to be, it will still see some levels of presidential spending as one of those second-tier swing states that could determine the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. The main reason, however, that we have rated North Carolina as a state of interest is because of this upcoming race for the gubernatorial seat. Democrats have been in control of the governorship since 2016, while the Republicans have controlled both chambers of the state legislature. This has created an atmosphere where the outcome of this election will be very significant in many North Carolina policies moving forward, perhaps some of those that center around abortion, guns rights, education, all of which will be issues that will be hit on in advertising in the state. Beyond the presidential race and the governor's race, there's also a few House races of significance that will be impacting areas like Charlotte, Greensboro, and Raleigh that have gone into factoring all of these markets very highly on our Assembly's Market Intensity Index. Charlotte in particular is going to also see some residual spending from the South Carolina primary, the Republican primary in the first quarter of 2024. All of these factors have gone into rating Charlotte in particular as a market of high intensity throughout the duration of 2024, both in quarter 1 and as well as the last bits of third quarter and fourth quarter. The next few states on our list will definitely be of familiarity to you. We've rated Pennsylvania among the highest states in the country in terms of political ad intensity. Of course, we all know that it is a monumental swing state in the presidential election, and we'll see significant amounts of spending from both the Democrats and the Republicans once we get towards June or July of second quarter. Beyond that, though, they also have another Senate race following the one in 2022. Bob Casey is up for re-election in 2024 and has already attracted some big money spenders on the Republican side to challenge him in what is considered to be a toss-up in the Senate race. Like North Carolina and California as well, Pennsylvania has numerous House races that will be very competitive, a lot of which will be centered around Wilkes-Barre-Scranton, while also some in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. We have identified Philadelphia to be the highest intensity market in the state of Pennsylvania, primarily because it's the largest DMA. It has bleed over with some of those House districts that we identified, and of course, because of the presidential election. Similar to Pennsylvania, Arizona is considered to be a swing state that could go either way in the presidential election, and also has a Senate race that is going to be highly competitive. Current incumbent Kristen Sinema has recently identified as an independent and has drawn a very serious primary challenger on the left, while also fending a particularly high-profile challenger on the right. At the moment, this race is very unpredictable. It's unclear if Sinema will run for re-election, and if she does, what that impact that will have on the complexion of this race throughout the year. What we do know from Assembly's point of view is that the entire state is going to be inundated with political advertising from the presidential race, the Senate race, and a couple of competitive House races as well. Very similar to Pennsylvania, with just a few other elements that make things a little harder to predict here. Phoenix has been rated as number 3 on Assembly's Market Intensity Index. A big factor that separates Arizona from Pennsylvania is that Pennsylvania has numerous DMAs that will be the recipients of these prices that we've discussed, whereas Arizona only has 3. The majority of political spending will descend on really one market in Phoenix, and a good amount in Tucson as well. Inventory is going to be crunched in these markets more so than it would be perhaps in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and that is why we have rated Phoenix so much higher on our political intensity index. The last state we're going to talk about today is Nevada, which we have identified as being the highest intensity state across the country for spending in 2024. Particularly like Arizona, Nevada has 2 markets that will see the bulk of political spending, Las Vegas and Reno. Like a lot of the states that we've talked about so far, Nevada is going to feature a highly competitive Senate election. They are also going to be one of the significant states in determining the outcome of the presidential election. They also have numerous competitive House races, as we've discussed with many of these other states as well. One of the differentiating factors for Nevada is that it will feature highly competitive elections in each quarter of the election spending cycle. In the first quarter, it will be the destination of one of the Republican presidential primaries. In February, following the first 3 primaries, advertising volume will skyrocket in both markets across Nevada. Shortly thereafter, the state will pivot towards its statewide elections that will be held during June. The Senate races, the House races will all be seeing significant action in the primaries that will lead to high volumes across the duration of second quarter. Then, of course, there's Election Day, November 5th, the lead up to which we'll see perhaps the highest level of spending that Nevada has seen to date. The competitiveness of these races that we have outlined and the way in which their spending for them will be spread out throughout the duration of 2024 have all factored into Assembly's decision to rate Las Vegas as the highest political intensity market in the country for 2024. The numbers on this scale represent more than just a ranking system. They represent hundreds of millions of dollars in the markets that we have identified. And as an advertiser, if you want to be the most informed, this is something that you absolutely have to take into your calculus. It's important to bring all information to the table in making decisions for this upcoming year. Political advertising is unavoidable, and it is going to be a factor in anyone's media strategy, regardless of where you are. This is not one long sprint, it's several, and it's going to impact you in different ways. Beyond inventory, it's important for advertisers to understand the sentiments of their consumers. Commercial advertisements don't exist in a vacuum. They'll be playing alongside these political ads in all the markets that we've identified, and really all markets across the country. And that's why Assembly's team is happy to be working hand in hand with their commercial advertisers here and feel that we bring the best information to the table. To learn more about insights like these and learn more about the markets that may be affecting you, please read Assembly's 2024 Election Outlook Report.